everyone, welcome back. As we always do on this channel, we'll be breaking down another verse in this video. And this time, it's Ephesians chapter 4 verse 29. So without further ado, let's jump right in. What better way to begin than to review what this verse says? Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Let's begin by analyzing the phrase corrupt communication. I think a great way to understand what Paul meant here is to divide it into 3 levels. The first would be foul language. You've probably met people who constantly swear and use profane language. As Christians, I think it's important that the manner in which we convey our thoughts to the public is decent and orderly. Paul gave us this advice. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becometh saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. If you read Ephesians chapter 5, verses 3 to 4. If you want to see what jesting is, I advise you take a look at 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 to 24. You'll like what you see there. Now, you might be wondering why that isn't at the top of the list, but someone can have a good heart, but perhaps they grew up amongst others often using those words and they copied it. The next levels are more personal though, and are more definitive of one's personality and holiness. The second level of corrupt communication is when we use our mouths to commit unholy acts, things like gossiping, lie-telling, and false witness. They're sins we commit using our mouths. They are forms of corrupt communication because they're sinful and promote strife, conflicts, and hatred among humans, which is against the commandment of God that we show love to one another, as we probably remember from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. Take, for instance, how Potiphar's wife lied against Joseph to her husband, and that was how he ended up in prison, according to Genesis chapter 39, verses 17 to 20. That was a malicious use of her mouth. King David, that famous guy who killed Goliath, had people like that all around him, which was why he said, Mine enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die, and his name perish? And if he come to see me, he speaketh vanity. His heart gathereth iniquity to itself. When he goeth abroad, he telleth it. Psalm 41, verses 5 and 6. But the third and highest level of corrupt communication is when our speech is blasphemous. Blasphemy is when we speak without knowledge of God's existence and supremacy. For instance, if you've ever heard people talk about saving the planet, that falls into this third level of corrupt communication because we can't be talking about God's creation and property like it's our own. As the psalmist said, Know ye that the Lord he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture, according to Psalm 100, verse 3. Also, talking about weapons of mass destruction and annihilating the earth and humanity like some politicians and media analysts do is also corrupt communication because the life God has given man is precious and shouldn't be toyed with like it's worthless. It is in this manner that the Jews in Christ's time mocked Jesus and called him all sorts of names. As Luke chapter 22 verse 65 tells us, they were actually blaspheming because it is God who chooses and sets apart his people. So we can't just disrespect God's own like they're nobody. Disrespecting God's representatives on earth is actually disrespecting him. Now we understand what corrupt communication is. To figure out what words of edification look like, which is the other half of the verse we're breaking down, we just need to flip all the things we've already analyzed. Words that edify and minister grace to the hearers are things we say out of true love for our fellow man, and that promote their well-being and eventual salvation. The first level would be things that we tell people to encourage or guide them in living a good life in this world. So things to help them get jobs, make good friends, save their money, stay in their marriages, and so on are words of edification. Take, for example, the advice that Jethro gave to Moses, which led to the creation of a functional justice system in Israel and a huge burden off Moses' shoulders. Those were words of edification. But the highest level of this is speech that promotes obedience to God's will. Encouraging people to save their money and other worldly things will indeed give them a better life, but it doesn't ensure they have any stake in the one God has promised for his faithful children, if you read Mark chapter 10, verses 28 to 30. If what we say makes people to become more interested in serving God, then we have ministered grace to our listeners. And God won't forget such contributions we make to his work. As we were told in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10, "For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have shewed toward his name, and that ye have ministered to the saints, and do minister." And I think that should just about do it for explaining what Paul meant in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, which once again reads, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers." If you enjoyed this video and like the way I broke this verse down, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I return to break down another verse, you can click the notification bell. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.